In the months after October 14th, 2025, people sat down at Windows 10 computers they had not asked to change and found Windows 11 installing itself. Microsoft had removed the ability to pause updates on machines that were not enrolled in extended security. Some of those upgrades were never approved by the person who owned the machine. Others got the notice instead. Your version has reached the end of support. No more security updates. No technical assistance. Buy a new computer. That was happening on Windows 10 Home and Windows 10 Pro. On those same days, on the same monthly patch schedule, from the same Microsoft servers, another edition of Windows 10 was receiving its security updates on time. It still is, right now. Its documented end of support date is January 13th, 2032. 7 years and 3 months past the date everybody else was cut off. It is not a leak. It is not a stripped-down image assembled by somebody on a forum. It is Microsoft code, built by Microsoft, documented on Microsoft servers, sitting behind a Microsoft lifecycle page that carries that date in plain text where anyone can read it. You cannot buy it, not because it is a secret, because Microsoft will not sell it to you. The edition is called Windows 10 IoT Enterprise Long-Term Servicing Channel, released in 2021. Underneath, it is built 19044, the 21H2 codebase. That is the same core that shipped to hundreds of millions of ordinary Windows 10 machines. Same kernel, same driver model, same everything that matters. The difference is which servicing channel it sits in, and that single administrative fact is worth 7 extra years of security patches. Microsoft built it for machines that cannot be allowed to change. The examples in the official documentation are the ones you would expect. Magnetic resonance imaging scanners, industrial process controllers, air traffic control equipment, point-of-sale terminals, bank machines, digital signage, factory robots. Equipment where a feature update that redesigns the start menu is not an annoyance. It is a certification failure that takes 6 months and a regulator to undo. So Microsoft made a promise to the companies that build those machines. 10 years. No feature updates, nothing moves, security fixes only. And then somebody noticed that the description of a computer that does not change, has no store, has no Cortana, has no forced annual redesign, and receives a decade of security patches is also a fairly precise description of what a large number of ordinary desktop users have been asking Microsoft for since roughly 2015. Here is where it gets difficult, and this is the part that answers the question in the title. Windows 10 IoT Enterprise LTSC is not sold at retail. There is no box. There is no download button on the Microsoft Store page because there is no Microsoft Store page. Microsoft support engineers answering this question in 2026 give the same answer every time. It is available only through authorized original equipment manufacturer distributors and volume licensing partners. The distributors have names: Arrow, Avnet, Advantech. These are industrial electronics supply companies. They sell circuit boards and embedded controllers to engineering firms. If you want 100 licenses for 100 kiosks, that is who you call. If you are one person with one desktop computer in a spare bedroom, there is no version of that conversation that ends with you owning a license. The license is issued per device and tied to a distribution agreement between Microsoft and a hardware manufacturer. That is the wall. And Microsoft did not build it by accident. On February 18, 2021, Microsoft published a blog post announcing a change to the long-term servicing channel. The standard enterprise version of LTSC, the one that organizations could reach through normal volume licensing, had its support lifecycle cut from 10 years to 5. Cut in half. The reason Microsoft gave in that post was that many customers who had installed LTSC on ordinary Office desktops had found they did not require the full 10-year lifecycle. Read that again, because it is not a technical statement, it is an admission. Microsoft was not describing embedded medical equipment. Microsoft was describing information worker desktops, regular computers on regular desks running LTSC because the people responsible for them had worked out that the version designed for cash machines was a calmer place to live than the version designed for them. Reporting at the time was direct about what was happening. Microsoft executives had been trying to talk customers out of using LTSC as a way to avoid feature updates. The insistence was constant. This is for mission-critical systems. This is not for you. And in that same February 2021 announcement, Microsoft said where the full decade would survive, anyone who genuinely needed 10 years of support was pointed to Windows 10 IoT Enterprise LTSC. The edition sold only through industrial distributors, the one you cannot buy. So the 10-year promise was not removed. It was moved. It was picked up out of a channel ordinary organizations could reach and set down inside a channel that requires an OEM distribution agreement to enter. Now, what is behind that door? The consumer layer is gone. No Microsoft Store by default. No Cortana. No pre-installed application refresh cycle. No annual feature upgrade that redesigns something you had learned. Microsoft documentation states this without embarrassment, because for the intended customer, it is the entire selling point. The operating environment remains consistent for years, which reduces regression risk and recertification work. Translated out of engineering language, that sentence says the computer will still work the same way next year as it does today. And there is a second door, which Microsoft left standing open the whole time. The evaluation image is public. Microsoft has always published a 90-day trial ISO of Enterprise LT, downloadable by anybody, no distributor required. The full non-evaluation image sits in public archives. The hardware requirement is almost nothing. 1 GHz processor, 2 GB of memory, 20 GB of storage. Machines that Windows 11 refuses to touch will run this without complaint, which is how the situation ended up here. An operating system Microsoft states is not a consumer product, that no consumer can legitimately purchase, whose installation media is a public download running on ordinary home desktops. There was one moment where the two worlds collided in public. In October 2025, in the days around the end of support deadline, Microsoft updated its own Windows 10 update history page and listed Windows 10 IoT Enterprise LTC 2021 among the versions that had reached end of support. Machines running it displayed the same funeral notice everyone else got. It appears to have been a publishing mistake. Microsoft subsequently corrected the post to confirm that the 2021 LTSC and IoT LTSC releases were still supported, and the monthly updates never stopped. But for a short period, the edition Microsoft does not sell to you was also apparently being told it was dead by the company that makes it. And the same arrangement already exists for the next decade. Windows 11 IoT Enterprise LTSC 2024 went to device makers on May 22, 2024. It is built on the Windows 11 24H2 core. Its documented end of support date is October 10, 2034. Same channel, same distributors, same answer if you try to buy one. Now hold that against what Microsoft did in public in June of this year, because the timing is the most revealing thing in this entire story. On June 25, 2026, Microsoft extended the free Extended Security Updates program for ordinary Windows 10 users by a full additional year, pushing coverage from October 2026 out to October 12, 2027. There was no announcement. There was no press release, no keynote, no blog post written for the occasion. The change appeared as an edit to a support document and as an editor note appended to an existing post on the Windows Experience blog. Reporters found it by comparing page versions. When Windows Latest asked whether the new date was a documentation error, Microsoft confirmed it was not, and said the program for personal use devices was being provided for an additional year to give customers more time and flexibility to find the best computer for their needs. An entire extra year of security updates for a very large number of machines, delivered by quietly editing a web page. The terms are worth knowing precisely. Enrollment is free if you sign in with a Microsoft account and sync your settings to Microsoft servers. If you prefer not to do that, The alternatives are 1,000 Microsoft Rewards points, or a one-time payment of $30. One license covers up to 10 devices. Machines joined to a work domain or managed by mobile device management are not eligible for the consumer program. So what does any of this mean for the machine you are watching this on? Start with the honest cost, because this is where most videos on this subject go quiet. There is no upgrade path. Microsoft does not support an in-place move from Home or Pro to LTSC. It is a clean installation which wipes the drive. Everything on that machine has to come off it first and go back on afterwards, including applications whose license keys you may no longer be able to find. Then there is the software. Microsoft documentation warns about this directly. Games and applications may drop support for an LT build once that same build reaches end of life in the mainstream channel, regardless of how long Microsoft keeps patching it. Some games require the Microsoft Store and the Xbox application, which are not there by default and have to be installed by hand. This is not hypothetical. In October 2021, a photographer running LTSC 2019 discovered that Adobe Lightroom Classic version 11 required Windows 10 build 18363, while the LTSC release he was on topped out at build 1809. The operating system was fully supported. The software did not care. New hardware is the other exposure. An LTSC release does not receive feature updates, and feature updates are how Windows gets native support for processors and chipsets that did not exist when the build shipped. Industrial customers manage this by keeping spare units of identical hardware. You cannot do that with a computer you might replace in 4 years. And there is a serious counter-argument that deserves airing, because this audience will make it in the comments anyway. Plenty of experienced people think the enthusiasm for LC on ordinary desktops is misplaced, that the benefit is largely psychological, and that anyone who does not want Edge or OneDrive can simply not open Edge or OneDrive. Microsoft says the same thing in more formal language. LTSC was never designed for general-purpose use, and the company has said so consistently for a decade. Both things can be true. The edition can be genuinely unsuitable for many people, and Microsoft can still have engineered a situation where the version of Windows that behaves the way people are asking for is the version they are structurally prevented from purchasing. If the honest conclusion is that leaving Windows is the cleaner option for your hardware, Windows Escape Kit walks through a Linux Mint migration end-to-end, including what transfers and what does not. It is on Gumroad for $17. So here is where it stands. Microsoft has not hidden anything. Every fact in this video came off a Microsoft page or a Microsoft blog post. The lifecycle dates are public. The evaluation image is public. The February 2021 announcement explaining why the 10-year promise moved is still online. What Microsoft did instead was quieter and more effective than hiding. It built a version of Windows that does what a large part of its own customer base has been asking for since 2015. It watched those customers find it. It cut the life cycle of the reachable version in half. And it kept the full decade alive only in the channel that requires a distribution agreement with an industrial electronics supplier to enter. Then, this June, it extended free security updates for everyone else by a year and told nobody. 2 different Microsofts running at the same time. One that patches an operating system through 2032 for a company building bank machines. One that removes the pause button on your desktop and lets Windows 11 install itself while you are away from the keyboard. The date on the lifecycle page is January 13th, 2032. It has been there since 2021. Anybody could have read it. The question was never whether the support exists. The question is why the only people permitted to purchase it are the ones who are never going to complain about the alternative. If you are still on Windows 10 right now, I want to know which way you went after October 14th. Enrolled in extended security, moved to Windows 11, went to Linux, or did nothing at all and are running unpatched. Put it below, because the split in that comment section is going to be more accurate than any survey Microsoft publishes.